to the Private Property Farming Podcast. And my name is Mbali Nwoko once again. Today we've got a dynamic entrepreneur, Zamokuhle Thwala, who is the CEO and founder of AgriCool Finance. It's got quite an edgy name to it. And before we get into my discussion with Zamokuhle and just to understand more about his organization, I just want to encourage you to keep sharing the videos that you find on YouTube, on Private Properties platform, as well as Facebook. Feel free to comment. And if we don't answer your questions directly onto the show, we will comment post the live recording. So please bring in those questions, and we want to assist you as best as we can with anything related to farming. And if you have questions for the guests as well, please do so, and we'll make sure that your question is answered during the show or at the end of the show. But without further ado, let's get to meet Zamokuhle Thwala. Zamokuhle, how are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. Thank you for allowing the time for us to speak to you today. Yeah, I know it's been quite back and forth trying to arrange today's podcast, but thank you for making time for us.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Great. So Zamo, for the people that don't know you and that are hearing the word AgriCool Finance for the first time, what is AgriCool Finance? What does your organization do, and where are you based?
Cool. So in a nutshell, AgriCool Finance is just a platform that links farmers and buyers to a fair and reliable market. And also we also link these smallholder farmers with an access to microfinance, to the crowdfunding model, where we enable you to farm without getting your hands dirty by making a smallholder farmer. And later, when the produce is ready and when it goes to market, you get your money back plus profit. In a nutshell, we are a platform that provides access to finance and access to market for smallholder farmers.
Awesome. And so what type of farmers are we talking about? In terms, let's say, maybe let's start off with the land size. So what do you deem as smallholder farmer? And secondly, what commodity would they have to be farming?
Cool. So just to answer your question, which I couldn't answer, which I forgot to answer, we are based in Pietermaritzburg, and we are currently working with farmers in Pietermaritzburg and surrounding areas due to some limitations, but everything is fluid. So when you can raise funding and grow and scale, you're going to go to other parts of the country as well. So how we would define a smallholder farmer, that's a tricky question because it's very subjective. It also usually depends on the quantity that they produce. For me, it's more of the quantity more than it is the size of the land that they have, because you could find someone with 10 hectares, but they're underutilizing the land, or you find someone with a hectare, they produce more than someone. But usually we're looking at a minimum of a hectare. So that is mostly a subsistence farming. And usually you find those in places like Greytown or Umtinga, where you find communal land where a group of people are farming there and they plant at the same time. So they have it at more or less the same time. So if you've got like 1 hectare, you also look at the distance. So you can leverage farming in groups as well. So it's not really about the size, but it's the quantity that you're also looking at other neighboring farmers as well. Because you need to count that if I bring maybe say 4-ton trucks to collect tomatoes or peppers, I need to make sure that it comes in full. If you're a group of farmers, then it becomes much easier. So it's not really based on the amount of land that you're farming, but mostly we're looking at least a farmer farming a hectare.
Yeah. Are you a farmer yourself, Zamokuhle?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I'm not a farmer. I was a farmer. I've been a farmer, hence there is AgriCool, because when I was still a smallholder farmer, I really battled with an access to finance. No, it's easy when people, they tell you that you could apply for that funding, and when you apply, you get rejected. So when I tried to use the little money that I had, I would battle with selling my stuff to the market, and that's how the idea of AgriCool Finance was formed, or that's how it started. The reason why we called AgriCool Finance was because initially we had made an assumption that the biggest challenge in the agri-food chain was finance. And trust me, the more you try to dig deeper, you realize no, the problem is not really with access to finance. You've got a lot of farmers who don't really have a lot of money, but they still farm. They will then struggle to sell the little that they have. And then again, you would think the problem is with access to markets. When you speak to buyers who buy from smallholder farmers, they tell you, listen, I'm willing to support this guy. The problem is not access to market, it's produce which is not of the right quality. Then you think again, the problem, it's more like onion, layer by layer.
Yeah, it's back and forth all the time,
pivoting now and then, and
yeah.
I think that's what also makes the problem very exciting as well. You always make assumptions and initially find this wasn't the case, this is the case, try to do something.
So your fundamental business model was to assist farmers from a finance and a marketing point of view. And now you mentioned other things that come into play as you deal with the farmer and as you deal with the buyer. How are you solving that problem? Today, farmer X is delivering maybe, let's say, cabbage, for example, but then the buyer is rejecting that cabbage and saying it's not of the right spec. Maybe it weighs 5 kilograms instead of 3 kilograms, whatever the case might be. So how are you solving that problem for the farmer as well as the buyer?
Well, I'll be very, very honest with you. It's a problem that you've discovered recently. It's only recently we've realized that the reason why your Pick and Pays, the reason why your boxes are so reluctant to buy from your smallholder farmers, in particular specific crops like your peppers, tomatoes, your high value crops, is because, or highly perishable crops rather, is because farmers are not really investing, in particular smallholder farmers, they're not really investing enough into farming. You see, I've spoken to a lot of farmers, especially in remote areas. You find that you ask them, what program are you following? And they'll tell you, this is the program. But when you follow the details, you realize that a lot of things that they're not paying, which also will have a negative effect on your shelf life of that produce. And that's where quality get compromised. And when you speak to them, you realize, why are you not paying this spraying program? They'll tell you, because it's too expensive. When you realize, okay, but then they'll tell you that it's a 2-liter bottle, which I'm probably going to use for like 3 seasons. You see, if a farmer says they invest in buying a certain agrochemical, they're only going to use maybe a 1/3 of that liter and those liters, and the remaining stays there until another season they start using it. It means like they're losing. So that is why it is important for us to try and liaise with these farmers. Every time that changes, as soon as I get information from the buyer, I can always take them. So we do that very well with our farmers.
Awesome. And now let's move to the other side of the spectrum. Besides market access, you did mention that you assist them from a financial point of view, whether it's that getting certain inputs for their farms, chemicals or irrigation, whatever the case might be. I'm the investor, because I've often seen your posts on social media, AgriCool finance pages, saying that, investors or let's call them investors, can invest a minimum of X amount of rands to this farm and you get your money back in however many months. So let's maybe explain to us, what do those investment cycles look like? Is it different grades, like 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, or a year to 3 years? Or is it just sporadic based on the season? So maybe explain to us from an investor's point of view, in terms of how can we put in our money to assist these farmers? Or I may like farming, but I really don't have the passion to do it literally, or I'm stuck in a 9 to 5, but how can I assist farmers out there who are struggling from finance? How far can my 1,000 rand, for example, go?
Cool, awesome. Firstly, we are helping these farmers with access to finance, to get agricultural input, mostly your microfinance. I mean, obviously, it also depends with the risk profile as well. Every finance, they need the risk profile, where we profile a farmer and see, do they know what they're doing, how long they've been doing it, do they have an access to market, and all those factors they come in. Obviously, we help with access to market, depending with what they've found as well. So what also happened is that initially, before, we've pivoted a lot when it comes to the finance. Because initially we were just funding farmers, realized no, there was a huge risk attached to that. And we had some issues also with loan funding repayment. Farmers, we had been battling with them paying money back because of a lot of issues. So now what we tried to do was to say, okay, fine, let's concentrate on growing our market first. And when we link you with an access to market, we've got our vetting systems. If we tell you that today, say at 5 tomorrow morning, I'm coming to collect papers, and you should have them already in crates. So if you do that accordingly, you get some points. It's in a way, it incentivizes farmers to do well so they can qualify for an access to finance. If you produce a certain quality, if you meet the standards of our retailers and our buyers are happy, you get certain points. It also, in a way, pushes them to do the right thing. And we seem to be doing when it comes to that. So that by doing so, it means now we've got a risk profile and we already know the farmers need, we can quantify, say, okay, they need, okay, probably they can improve if they had access to fertilizers. It means with the finance that they were getting, they're coming to help them with fertilizers or with agrochemicals, whatever that they'll be needing. Basically, what determines the duration of the investment is the nature of that particular crop. For example, if we invest on cabbages and say they take months, we can make that investment 4 or 5 months. Depending as well, we can always project, in summer there's going to be a high demand for cabbages because a lot of farmers may not be able, especially for spinach, in as much as it was flooded, but not a lot of farmers will be able to plant spinach because it needs a huge investment comes to spraying and maintenance. So we project also based on that, how quickly we can sell the stuff by projecting the demand. As from next week, even now, there's high demand for your peppers and your tomatoes. So it's based on demand as well, duration. And so does the percentage as well. So if maybe say you're investing 1,000 Rand for a duration of 5 months, and we've promised that we're going to get you 13% of your contribution to 1,000 Rand, it means after that 5 months, you'll be getting your 1,000 plus 13% of 1,000 Rand, which is 130 Rand. So the total payout will be 1,130 Rand. Yeah, so that's how it's going to be. So if you've done investment before, you would know that it's very lucrative because it's almost like what you would not get from your traditional financial institutions or from your investment platforms in half duration. Maybe you can get, even now with your repo rate, it's even lower now. You would barely get anything more than your 9%. But if you're getting 13 annually, if you're getting your 13% in 6 months, that's still good. And I mean, it also impacts investment most importantly, because you're helping someone who doesn't have an access to market, to finance, to get finance to start farming. And also, I usually mention that, I mean, this is very good concept because it also allows money to circulate within our communities, which is something we've been battling with as Black people in particular. Because, I mean, I always say that if we are taking money outside our community faster than we earn it, we'll never solve our economic problems.
Yeah. So, and then how do you then buffer or protect the investor from losing their investment? Because we all know that farming is risky. You were a farmer, I'm a farmer, and I could also be investing as well as a farmer,
Cool.
So with my knowledge of the risks in farming, we have hailstorms, we have drought, you have a spread of diseases maybe that could really affect your whole production in terms of the vegetables. How do you then, what's the promise that you give to an investor should an instance like this happen? Because I may have invested 1,000 Rand and you're saying it's 13% in the next 5 months, but that specific farmer that used those funds, gets completely wiped out by hail. How do you then protect the investor and their initial investment?
Yeah, awesome. I think when we got into the space, we knew very little about your insurance and everything. So like I said, it's been a very erratic journey, moving from that to that. You're very excited. I'm trying to solve a problem with access to finance. Eventually, you realize there is that risk that you need to mitigate. Maybe with some business, you need to keep up with the spraying program that might be much easier as compared to your health to mitigate that risk. So we've tried to speak to insurances like your Santam and many others. But the biggest challenge is that insurers don't insure high value crops, and it makes sense from an insurance perspective because it's not economically viable for them to do that. We've had like a few cases where we've had some issues with hail, severe health damage in the entire field. And what we've done, we've paid our investors what they have contributed. That is the promise. But also it did have, it resulted into some challenges within our company because it's something we had not expected. So now we are trying to pivot into your grain crops, like your beans, like your your maize, and many others. Those ones are easily insurable. And if there's severe hail and it damages the entire field, at least you can speak to your insurers and claim and get your money back. So now that is why, and we've tried to cut down on our investment, particularly on your high value crops, especially in summer now, because that's when you get your hail, that's when you get some thunderstorms, severe weather. So we've had like huge challenges when it comes to that, and we've learned it the hard way and paid a huge fee for those mistakes. But we have pivoted, we are still in talks with some insurers to try and design some policies that would cater for smallholder farmers as well, because even themselves, they cannot just insure a 0.1 hectares, they need to insure from a certain minimum. So, but we are trying to pivot into grain crops, which are easily insurable. And before we can do that fully, we also need to liaise with the buyers of these grain crops as well, because we cannot open investment for something that we do not have a market for, because there is also a risk which is market risk as well.
Right. So any for any farmers, smallholder farmers that are watching this interview and are thinking, how do I get in touch with AgriCool Finance and what are the requirements? You know, because they may be struggling with access to finance or market. Take us through that process. How do you then accept farmers within the AgriCool network?
Okay, cool. Awesome. So basically how it happens, like I said, we've pivoted. Previously, we were just allowing applications to come through, and we'd have like a day every Friday sitting down looking at these applications. So then we pivoted and said, cool, it's very difficult to create a risk profile for these farmers. So we need to create our own matrices to see worthwhile for the credit. So now the first step is that, like I've said, it has to be farmers around Pietermaritzburg and surrounding areas, because we are a startup, we are bootstrapping, so we don't have enough resources to cater for everyone. So for these farmers, what's going to happen is that as soon as they start to supply us, then we start to help them. We start to create that risk profile. It doesn't take long. I mean, after a few months, 2 to 3 months, then we see how much you deserve from AgriCool, how you've been handling, looking at your produce and knowing, look at the assets you have and everything. Our funding, although it is collateral free, but if you've got, say, maybe a tractor, it does help to see that in terms of your planning, if you've got your own tractor, unlike using a communal tractor where it belongs to everyone, there may be issues with you having some delays with planting. So there are a lot of things that we're looking into. Yeah, so the first step is to get into in contact with AgriCool. Let us know Pietermaritzburg or surrounding areas. I've got lettuce and I have access to markets. Okay, cool. We send us pictures, we come to your farm, we vet and look, spraying program. And another thing which I forgot to mention is with your traceability as well. That's very important. That's one of the problems that we're trying to solve. Because in as much as we are still developing the tech side of the business, where we want to see from your farm and it goes the buyer or to the retail, we need that traceability as well. So we need to see all your spraying program. Where did you get your seedlings? When? What spraying program did you use? What cultivar? As a farmer, you need to have. When did you spray? How much fertilizers did you put in? How much spraying? All those details, we need to know them. That's very critical for our buyers as well. And as much as it may not be very difficult for the smallholder farmers to be compliant with GAP and all these bureaucracy or requirements, at least we need to try and move one step at a time. So when you get to your farm, those are the things we want to see, but not for the first time. I mean, while you're still busy building slow, make sure you get used to your bookkeeping, make sure everything is there and you answer for most of the questions.
Yeah. When did you start AgriCool Finance, and how many farmers are you currently assisting now?
Okay, cool. We started AgriCool Finance in 2018. Late 2018, but then we went public where we started to raise other people's funds, because it started more like a stock fair where I was pulling money from my friends, and eventually we saw it was working. We started with other people as well. Like I've mentioned that we started as an AgriCool Finance, where we are solidly a company that solves a problem in agri-finance space. So far, we've got over 100 farmers around PMB and surrounding areas in our database, but we've only assisted 70 of them with access to markets and also with access to finance. In our platform, we've raised over 2 million rand in our crowdfunding platform. We're assisting these farmers with access to finance and finance some of these 74 farmers.
Wow. Can I just reiterate on that point? You said currently you have about a network of 200 farmers, but you're currently assisting 70.
Yes, correct.
And that you've raised about 2 million in this platform alone.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Oh, that is awesome. Congratulations. And you've just started, you know, not even 3 years as yet. So that's fantastic. I want to find out, Zamokuhle, is that do you handle the logistics part of the business as well? Do farmers have to worry about logistics, or like, for example, if they're part of the AgriCool finance network, you know, as you come and collect, do you collect the produce, or the farmer must deliver the produce at client X, for example, or do you manage the logistics part of it?
Okay, cool. So what happened is that we manage the logistic part of it. Most of our farmers that we assist don't have logistics. I mean, that's one of the challenges as well that most farmers have, and they don't have money to invest in logistics. So ideally how it would work is that we've got our own truck would come at the farm and collect. And the reason why we also try to do this is because we want to create a close relationship with these farmers, get to know them, see what they're doing at the farm, and also you would know with the produce it needs to be handled the right way as well, through harvesting, packaging, and also transporting. We try to also have our truck, our assistant drivers, and everyone to do the right thing. But I mean, obviously, you've got your big volumes, like I'm sure as from next week, you'll be doing like, say, your 20 ton, 30 ton of potatoes moving from Moy River to Durban. So obviously, we don't have a 30 ton truck. So for that one, we'll speak to our logistic partners. We've got a couple of them negotiating prices and say, moving this produce from point A to point B, how much do you charge per kilometer? So we do that on behalf of the farmer. So the farmer has to do what they're good at. They have to concentrate on farming and produce quality. But everything we do them ours, we take care of the rest. That's how we call.
Awesome, that's great to hear. But what drew you as Zamokuhle into the agricultural industry?
Yeah, I'm just a guy who I wasn't expecting that question, but I'm just a guy who's very passionate about agriculture and using technology and changing people's lives, and just here to make agriculture cool because I just want to see more youth, and I'm very into what you're doing. I see you've been making it cool as well, and trying to lure more youth to join this amazing sector. I mean, it's only going to grow. Like, I mean, by 2050, it's estimated that Africa's population is going to grow by over 1.9 billion. So we really need to help these smallholder farmers to transition to commercial production so that we meet the consumers' needs. So I'm just a guy who's here to make agriculture cool and fashionable. I'm hoping so.
Yeah, hence AgriCool finance, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Because you spoke about youth, are there any young farmers, let's say under the age of 45, within the AgriCool finance network?
Now, well, I'll be very honest with you, not so many. Maybe I'd say roughly 30%. 20% it's a very aged community. The farming community is very aged. We need to get more people involved. And the reason why youth is not joining is because there are a lot of challenges within this sector. Like some of them, they try to quit that job, then they start planting or farming, and eventually they would not have enough money. So then they quit again. So as soon as we start solving these agri-finance, access to market, traceability, and many of these bureaucracy and this sector, then we start making it cool and fashionable, and you get more youth getting involved. Because I mean, they also need to make profit, and they also need to make money. They need to be growth. I mean, it's very difficult to be a farmer. I was in that position myself a few years ago, where you can only grow your crops, but you're not growing as a person, as a company. Yeah.
Wow, I think to conclude our lovely conversation, I'm learning a great deal in terms of what you're saying about the farmers, and especially within that Pietermaritzburg region. What is next for AgriCool finance? I mean, we've just been hit by a global pandemic. We might be hitting a second wave. Actually, in some other provinces, there's already a second wave. So we really don't know what 2021 looks like for us. But what is next for AgriCool finance in the next year, or in the next 3 to 5 years rather?
Oh, awesome. Speaking of the pandemic, I think we as AgriCool been hardly hit by the pandemic because one thing I also forgot to mention, which I think is very important to mention, is that our access to market is not only your big retailers, we also link with the informal market. We've organized hawkers in the CBD of PMB, where we allow these farmers to sell directly to these markets. I mean, I think there's a huge impact in what we're doing there, more than there is in having these farmers supplying your big stores or your big retailers, because what's happening is that if maybe we are eliminating a number of middlemen between this transaction, it means the farmer is able to sell cheaper and the hawker is buying cheaper, so it's able to also sell cheaper to the end consumer. So also that helps, it helps with the food prices, it mitigates inflation of food prices. More people you have in between, it also contributes to the inflation of food prices. So
Yes.
not just that as well, also post-harvest losses. I mean, if they supply directly to the markets, they can sell it fresh and they sell it the same day. Also minimize your post-harvest losses, which is one of the big challenges in South Africa and in many other countries. So at AgriCool, we were hardly affected by the pandemic, because I remember before we supplied to retail, we were only supplying the formal market.
Yes.
And there came a time where the government said informal market was no longer prohibited to trade. So from there, we had our kinds of produce which you couldn't sell because our market wasn't there. And because of that, we pivoted to your formal market, your retailers. That's how we got your Boxer, your Save, and other retailers. That's how we got hold of them. And fortunately, they gave us good deals. So now we've got two of these markets. So, I mean, in 2 to 3 years' time, we're looking to grow our informal market. We're very much passionate about that because there's a huge impact there. And it's an African problem as well. So it's very exciting to be providing African solutions to African problems. And also we're trying to develop technology where a platform where a buyer without us. Ideally, how it happens now, I speak to a farmer, I negotiate with the buyers, I try to negotiate between the two, then I link them, then the transaction happens. We are working on a platform where it's going to happen automatically, where you're going to have a lot of buyers bidding for a produce maybe, the farmer and the farmer is going to sell at whatever. So just to make sure that the platform is transparent, it's reliable, and it's stable as well. And not just that as well, we're also working on trying to see if we can tap into the export markets. Because we want to make sure that these farmers, they sell at premium prices. At least they target export. Maybe for some reasons they're unable to reach the target, they can have something below that, but they could still be able to sell locally. Because if they target our local quality, they only going to do less than that, and that's why they better access to market. Looking to scale and grow, and obviously that will depend on how fast we can grow as a company, in onboarding more partnerships, because we really believe in the startup corporate relationships. We can speak to many stakeholders and say, hey guys, this is what you're doing. We understand that according to your policies, it's your best interest to help farmers, but can we be that bridge between smallholder farmers and your corporate, like your Freshmark, your Boxer, and many others, your food. We're trying to help them to help these smallholder farmers with their traceability, quality, and many other problems as well.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll definitely keep an eye out, for all the work that you're doing. I know I follow you on social media. So yeah, congratulations. And everything that you're saying is hitting home. And I strongly support that to advocate around selling produce to the informal market. There are great benefits there. I know as a farmer, I've personally sold to them, and I found doing business with them quite a joy. You know, besides having the money directly in cash, But I think one thing we should throw out there is that it doesn't mean that if you're selling to the informal market, your quality must be less than, you know what I mean? Because consumers actually are the ones that drive how products should look and be and smell and taste, and so consumers drive a product specification. And so selling to the informal market, definitely you have to meet certain standards, because also they've got access, they've got varieties, in terms of where they can also sell their produce or buy their produce from or source their produce. So
it's also very difficult to sell to them as well, because they can always buy from your municipal market. They should have like your very your selling very proposition. They need to see why they should buy from you as well. Like, I mean,
absolutely.
some people, they see it as a place where they dump what they couldn't sell, which is not really the case. They also want quality. And remember, they want it very fresh because they don't have these sophisticated technology to store, refrigerate. They just want the best quality that if maybe they couldn't sell on that particular day, they'll sell the following day.
Exactly, and that is why, as a farmer, your farming level or your farming game must be of a certain standard, because selling to informal, they don't have cold chain or cold storage solutions, or infrastructure, because they sell on the side of the road or by taxi ranks, etc. So, thank you for mentioning those strong points. But thank you so much, Zamokuhle, for our conversation today. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm sure people will be, reaching out to you, because a lot of farmers are struggling with access to market. And I suppose the demand now, the big problem that you're also going to have is that, can you please have AgriCool finance in other provinces,
Absolutely.
because there's smallholder farmers in every province. So if you're already at about a 200 number in Pietermaritzburg, just imagine how many more farmers are seeing this conversation and just thinking, I want AgriCool finance in my area. So wishing you all the best. And I'm sure we'll be in touch again within the agri community. But are there any last words that you'd like to say about your organization or yourself?
Oh, cool. No, thank you. Thank you very much. It's been very exciting. And I'm glad to share what we're doing at AgriCool with the rest of the community. And also, it's not only about us helping farmers with access to market. We're looking for those buyers. If there's someone who's a buyer, they can speak to us and see how we can collaborate. I mean, they say collaboration is the new innovation. So it's more innovative than what we've done at AgriCool. So we're looking for those buyers from these big retailers and food manufacturing companies. So if anyone is listening from any company, they should shout out, let's speak and see how we can help our smallholder farmers. And those are my last words. And let's make agriculture cool and vegetable. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. You heard it from the man himself, Zamokuhle Thwala, CEO and founder of AgriCool Finance. He's based in Pietermaritzburg, currently assisting smallholder farmers in accessing markets and different financing solutions to grow their farming operations. Furthermore, they really want to bring on investors like yourself, maybe sitting at home, thinking, how can I support farmers? That 1,000 Rand or 500 Rand goes a long way for a farmer to buy inputs, to grow their business, to grow their operations. So please link up with AgriCool Finance. Furthermore, he's definitely looking for buyers, because it sounds like they've got produce. Farmers are harvesting, they need market access. So if you're a buyer and definitely want to collaborate with AgriCool Finance, please, I encourage you to reach out to Zamokuhle. And thank you so much for watching today. And again, if you missed this interview, you could catch it on Private Properties YouTube channel. And please, ask questions. We are happy to respond to them as soon as we can. And we're looking forward to you joining us once again on Thursday with another guest. Nevertheless, I will bid you a good day.